software application, which failed, but we all learn from trial and error. And then he also did a really cool thing with pinatagrams. It is a pinata you can send to consumers or to businesses. And then the cool thing is that the idea came from wanting to mail snails, but you can't do that. And he learned that, and then he thought, maybe I'm onto something, you know, like with this whole mailing stuff to pinata in to another person or whatever to send messages. So that's where he founded the pinatagrams, which I think is pretty cool. And if you want to expand on that a little bit more.
I think you said my whole story. I'll see you guys later. I mean, that is, everything you said there is right on the money. I'd say my first business that I really started was when I was 11 mowing yards. I had my first side hustle at 6 selling pecans that I picked with my grandfather. And always was trying to figure out a way to not so much like wheel and deal, but create value for other people and be self-supportive. I saw my brother doing the same thing and just kind of walked in his footsteps. He started mowing yards when he was about 11. I was 3 years younger, so just kind of followed in his footsteps. You briefly mentioned one of my many failures, and it's a common theme in most entrepreneurial journeys and something that I hold very dear to myself. I love my failures. They are the thing that made me who I am today. They were the best learning opportunities that I ever got, because when you feel the pain of the decisions that you make, it brings a whole new reality to the lessons that you're learning. And I actually have gotten in the habit of trying to fail at 2 or 3 business ideas per quarter. So I will just sketch out a simple e-commerce site, something like that, throw $50 to $100 at it, and figure out why I can't execute on it. Because the more that I do that, the more I learn about my strengths, my weaknesses, and the more tries that I've given towards creating another successful business. So yeah, that's a common theme for me, is just fail hard, fail fast, and fail small. And it's about failing as often and as small as you can. What are the questions? So I mentioned that I'm more interested in, rather than monologuing, say, what are the questions that y'all have? Are any of you currently pursuing businesses? What are some of the struggles? Are there aspects of starting a company that you're curious on, from funding to website development? I mean, just workshopping it. I'm hopefully a wealth of knowledge in that area. Oh, it sounded like you had a question.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm like the perfect one to ask for this, because this is what I'm going to be doing when I graduate in December. I'm an upstart partner in a digital marketing firm.
Okay.
Launching with a fellow Wesleyan alumni.
Love it.
And so I definitely relate to sort of the entrepreneurial struggle, because right now it feels like one of our big struggles is just finding the time for it, because I'm here taking 17 hours this semester. I've still involved with a wealth of student organization despite my attempts to downsize, which is, I'm not sure how that happened. And my partner, so I'm still trying to get used to that distinction, is he still has his day job, and he's only going to be able to leave that next month. So that's one of our struggles, is getting into a position where January 1st we can launch and start servicing clients. Although that's not what's happened so far. We actually just got our first client over the weekend.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. That's huge.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing. I mean, it's a small client, really. It's just going to be mainly some website work, cleaning that up.
Yeah.
Putting in a few new plugins and that sort of thing. But I mean, it's still a first client, and it's a $500 a month that we didn't have before. So.
Absolutely.
So.
Well, that reoccurring revenue is absolutely key for making that scary jump, especially for you're coming out of college, needing employment, and it sounds like your partner is going to be leaving another job. But I think you're doing it the right way. So making it a side hustle at first, and working those late nights, those somehow fitting in 17 hours of school and then also doing work on the side, gives you a little bit more safety net if you can start building that client list instead of jumping straight in.
Yeah, Oh, and then I still have a part-time job over the weekends I'm still doing, so I don't know
Yeah.
if I have any time. But yeah, so that's sort of what we were thinking was that, hey, and plus it's like sort of a test for us, it's like a soft launch. Like we can see how is it gonna work like once we actually have a client to service. Is the systems we talked about and like our process gonna work effectively and that sort of thing. So it's a bit of a learning experience for us really.
Are y'all familiar with burn rates? Does that term?
It sounds familiar.
So a burn rate is how much capital or cash a company burns, meaning like spends, month over month. And so knowing your burn rate is an absolutely key metric when you're starting a company. And so that's going to be from if you're paying rent for a physical space, to the utilities, to the Gmail account that you are paying for now because it's a business account. All of those little things add up, and there's this monthly total that's going to go out of your bank account. And let's say when you begin a company, you're wanting a certain amount. You're like, I think we can become profitable in 6 months, which would be a pretty aggressive goal, actually. But if that's your goal, you need to know how much money you're going to be spending every month along that journey to profitability. And if you get that, and so that amount of time that you have, let's say you had $100,000 and you were spending $10,000 a month, that would be a $10,000 burn rate, and you would have a 10-month runway. That's what your time to running out of money is called, your runway. Very critical. Another critical thing to be aware of is like, how long can you keep trying this thing until you have to close it down? So, for instance, with Pinatagrams, when I started chasing this idea of an e-commerce company, I wanted it to be able to start with less than $1,000, go cash flow positive within 3 months, and allow me to work from anywhere. Those were like my criteria as I was trying to think of what kind of business do I want to start. And the work from anywhere, it was like, okay, that's going to be e-commerce, and I don't want to be doing the fulfillment, so I'll have to find a fulfillment partner to handle all of the packaging and shipping. Then the profitability to 3 months, I needed it to be some sort of sensational item that could go viral. So it needed to market itself and not be something that I'd have to slog out, just month over month trying to get more traction. It needed to be able to pop pretty quickly. So that was where the mail a snail idea came in. Like, what? Like, that's crazy. And then same thing with the Pinatagrams. It just evolved into another sensational thing. And then starting for less than $1,000, that is why I went out and like when I tested the idea, I bought 5 piñatas and I shipped them to my parents. I was living in Houston and I shipped them up here. Drove up 3 days later, and when I saw the mailman put it in the mailbox and it was perfectly fine, I knew I had a business, and I'd spent $20. And so incrementally, and then for a while, I was only going to the party store and buying them whenever I got an order. So I was never out money. Again, I wanted to keep my burn rate as low as possible. So I was paying $30 a month for the Shopify e-commerce site that I had, and that was it. And so then, eventually you need to then scale up and take a bigger risk. And so I remember the first time I bought 100 of them at a time, and then now I had inventory. Now you got to manage that inventory. But there are always ways to test an idea for a low amount of money. I was working for a business accelerator about 5 years ago. Are y'all this is, I was like, are you familiar with accelerators? It was called Seed Sumo, and a company came in there trying to create a smart bed sheet where you could like do little patterns on the bed sheet and it would interact with your smart devices. Middle of the accelerator, they pivoted significantly, and they went from a bed sheet to a physical hardware device that went onto hard surfaces, and when you knocked, so it was like a modern day clapper. So that's their idea, modern day clapper that works with all of your smart devices, but you're knocking on hard surfaces. Well, they went out to Home Depot and you know the things that the paper towel go on, the holders?
Yeah.
They bought one of those. It was a nice brushed steel base. They took the stick off of it, put a really nice sticker on it, and took these high-resolution pictures of it on hard surfaces. And they called it the Naki. And built a website out of those high-res photos and said everything that it could do. And remember, this is the base of a paper towel roll holder. They pre-sold $30,000 worth in a matter of about 2 weeks with no product. Just this idea, a nice picture, and off of that, they were able to raise $1 million from investors, and then they were able to kickstart another 1.2 million. So, again, you don't have to have like a lot to. So that probably cost them. They put about $5,000 worth of Facebook ads to get the $30,000 worth of pre-orders, but they knew within $500 that it was working, if that makes sense, because they weren't just throwing money away. But so we talked about Alex's company. Anybody else have an idea that they are pursuing right now or would like to?
I do have an idea
Yeah.
on e-commerce.
Okay.
I want to do like clothing sales.
Yeah.
but My question was on finding the manufacturers. Like, I don't have that much of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to try something and then fail. I'm scared of failing at this point. That's why I keep holding my idea since it's been like 3 years already since I had this idea in my mind.
I would like you to go out and fail within the next month, and then call me, and I'm going to give you I'm going to come give you a high five. That is, never, I mean, I get it. I was too. And I still, to a large degree, am afraid of failing on a big scale. But what I learned is that the thing that is going, it's how you treat failure, how you think of it, what you do after it, that is going to define your career over the long term. That, again, finding these ways to fail small, fast, and quickly, you develop a thick skin, you start thinking about failure in a different mindset, you start seeing the ability to create solutions where you failed in the past, and wearing your failures on your sleeve. Like, the entrepreneurial community loves to trade those stories. Is like, the cool thing about entrepreneurs is they understand that failure is not a bad thing. So I would, you're right, that's an incredibly competitive market to be getting into. And your chances of failure are high. And so I would say hedge on not spending too much money out of the gate, but I would pursue it. And you don't know many manufacturers. That's what Google and telephones are for.
I know.
No, it's a good thing. So like I had a soap idea. I wanted to do a bar of soap. I don't know anything about soap manufacturing. And so I Googled manufacturers of soap, found a couple, started making phone calls, and wound up talking to a sales rep for the largest American-made soap manufacturer in the nation. And so like I'm trying to get about 100 bars made, and they are, their minimum order quantity was, I believe, 50,000. So we were a little bit off. But guess what? This guy, I learned so much. He was like, yeah, we can't help you. And I was like, could you answer a couple questions? He's like, absolutely. And so he told me about how the process works, how scents are injected into the soaps. And they gave me like 3 contacts that are much smaller companies that I could reach out to talk. And now I've got this connection with this guy that is like if I ever were to scale up operations, I could call back. So people like to help others, especially if you're asking, smart questions about what they do. A lot of people will say, hey, and the ones that don't, doesn't matter. Like, move on to the next.
I had read that you're a believer in the lean startup methodology Sorry.
It's practically a mythology, but yeah, methodology.
Yes, methodology. Was there a different area that you used to work, or like was there a different technique you used to work before that?
So the biggest failure financially that I had was pursuing a social media app coming out of college. And at that point, I had barely heard of lean startups and was certainly, even if I was practicing it, I was not embodying what it was actually supposed to be. So I went out and dropped close to $30,000 of investor money developing an app remotely in India without properly vetting the developers, with knowing nothing about software development at the time, and just immediately said, this is going to be great and I'm going to build it and they will come. So I went straight to building it. And even if I would have gotten a solid product back, which I didn't get anything back, even if I would have gotten a solid product back, it would have been the wrong way to go about it, because I was so convinced that this set of features had to be developed fully, and then I would show it to people and they'd be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I want to use this every single day of my life. That's not how people engage with software. I should have, first of all, done a lot of customer research, gone out there, gotten a whole list of, put up a landing page talking about what I wanted to do, and getting people to sign up and pre-register because they wanted to be a part of this new social network. The one little bit of lean startup that I did do on that project is I created a Facebook page where the idea was called Daily Thing to Do, and it was essentially action-based social media. So instead of going online and seeing what everyone else is like their ideal life, this gave you action prompts. You were supposed to do those action prompts and then join in a community of people that did stuff like climb a tree, high five a stranger, pick up trash, like just get engaged and do things. And we created a Facebook page where a month straight, me and my co-founder at the time did a thing and posted about it. And we got like, people were like, oh, that's cool. So then we dropped $30,000 trying to build an app, as opposed to organically growing that Facebook page and its followers and continuing to develop this community of people that were passionate about doing these things with us. Transitioning it to a website first, continuing to just put one thing out there a day. It didn't have to be the whole Tinder swipe code, point system, everything that we were going for, because that could have come once we had 10,000 people doing something every single day. Investors would have backed that, in a way that was not how the investors did back it.
So this is kind of a related topic, but like, there's been a lot of talk like in the business industry about like unicorn startups, just like your Uber, your WeWork, where they kind of like burn through money to sort of like get a competitive edge, and even after their IPOs, they're still profitable. How do you feel about that?
I feel like we're seeing those unicorns fall from grace, with WeWork's valuation dropping to a third of what it once was. Some of them, so Elon Musk's whole cadre of companies is positioning to move humanity forward in a way that a lot of the financial gains are still 20 to 50 to 80 years out. It's kind of like he's building the railroad of the future. So the same people that connected the Transcontinental Railroad were dumping tons of money into it. Now, fortunately, they were able to start making money on the towns as they got built up along the way. We're kind of like, there's not a lot between us and Mars. There's not a lot of pit stops that he could be running smaller rockets. But we're starting to see him gain a lot more revenues with placing satellites in space for private companies. All this to be said, I think some unicorns have more long-term potential to become profitable. Amazon's a good instance of a unicorn that made it all the way. But the intoxication of these private equity companies in the idea of investing in a unicorn that makes it that far there's a lot of dumb money going out, billions and billions and billions of dollars of dumb money. And I've got like, so one of my friends actually works for SoftBank's venture fund, which is who placed 20 billion into WeWork. And talking to him is like fascinating. It's like, how did you guys not know that the CEO was absolutely nuts? You gave the guy $20 billion.
Yeah, our class is actually going to try and, it was one of the options that we were gonna go as a field trip to go to WeWork or 1 Million Cups, so.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, we're excited to go awesome.
What class?
Management theory and practice, Dr. Wright.
Dude, Dr. Wright didn't do field trips when I took management theory about 2 years ago. Okay, maybe I should have asked. It's my final semester, and I just now realized I could ask for field trips. So, yeah.
I do have a question. I noticed on your LinkedIn profile, it says that you have industry knowledge in event planning. Could you expand on that a little bit more?
I'm very curious what portion of my LinkedIn profile says that. Do you remember which business it was in reference to? So I guess.
It was in reference, I guess, into Better Than a Letter, because that's the first one that pops up.
Okay, hold on. I've got to look at my LinkedIn profile real quick.
Okay, now, can you give me the URL? Because now I want to look for your LinkedIn profile.
Google him, and he'll pop
Yeah,
up.
Google LinkedIn and then my name, Nathan Butorac.
Nathan.
And then I'll tell you the spelling in a second. When you get to the last name, let me know.
Yeah, Nathan B.
U-T-O-R-A-C.
B-U-T-O-R-A-C.
Oh, I'm not logged in. Whatever. This is too much. So
Oh, I think
I'm really shocked that it says that. Wait, you found it?
yeah, let's see. So, for what was the one that says event
Event
management?
planning.
Better than a letter, right? Okay, it's loading. We have
Okay,
in here.
I might have to be changing my. So I would not consider myself any type of like expert in event planning. I'm actually part of a planning committee right now for Global Entrepreneurship Week,
Which is next week.
which is well, no,
2
it's 2 weeks. Yeah.
14th is when it starts.
Don't scare me like that. We still have a lot going on this event planning, and so I was part of that last year as well, and it's cool to be a part of a team from a lot of different entities in town, from Tech Fort Worth to UNT Health Science Center, Megan Wright from Texas Wesleyan's on it, and all of us working together on a very nebulous idea. So, we've got Gmail accounts, we've got calendars, we're taking intake of people's ideas for events. A lot of moving pieces. I primarily wind up on the marketing and the website side of things for event planning in that manner. But I'm curious, was there something about event planning that you wanted to know?
That exact area is what we're interested in.
Okay.
Yes.
So then maybe I might be able to help you. So is the question, how do you market an event?
One of them.
Okay.
Yes, you can go ahead and start with that one.
So do you have a budget?
Well, like 300, maybe free, ideally
Yeah.
free.
Ideally free, absolutely. That's always the dream. What is the event about?
It is actually the Global Entrepreneurship Week event we're having.
Oh.
To honor the Global Entrepreneurship Week here on campus. We're going to do a little foodie fest.
Okay.
Have food vendors come out. And then Ben from Triple B's is going to come, who won Iron Chef.
Yep.
And yeah, he'll come and he'll invite his friends. And we just really want to get the word out. We're not a big campus
Yep.
yet. This is our marketing efforts, so we just want some tips, some tricks, any advice.
Are you wanting just like the general public, or is there a specific demographic that you're going for?
Well, we general public, anyone who's interested in food, ideally everyone.
Are those foodies that are they going to be giving away free samples?
They will be selling some, and then you can register and pay $3 to get some free samples.
Okay. Food is good. Like that's a fun thing. It's easier to get people out when there's food involved. you can't go wrong with good old-fashioned guerrilla marketing with flyers. So if you come up, but I would make it like a really weird, zany, creative like flyer. This is actually how I launched Pinatagrams. I don't know. Did you read about how I launched it at South by Southwest?
I did not find anything on how you launched it. I found that it was January 2016.
So outside of posting on Facebook and just getting my friends to start buying them and their friends, how I really launched it was at South by Southwest, which is the big innovation music film festival in Austin. I went down there with 100 piñatas and 1,000 flyers for missing piñatas. So just like a dog flyer, I had pull tabs with my website and my social handle on it. And I walked hours and I plastered downtown Austin. You couldn't go by a light pole without seeing a missing piñata sign. And then there's all these pedicabs at the event just biking around. And so I would walk up to them and I'd be like, hey man, I don't know if you've seen the sign, there's a missing piñata. These are actually them, and you're gonna get a lot more business if you hang this from your handlebars, because people are gonna be like, oh, that's one, like I found it. And sure enough, I was able to talk about 20 pedicab drivers into having it on their little handlebar. And so it created this whole thing where people are pulling the tabs, they're seeing it, they're taking pictures. And from there, I got Pee Wee Herman, the actor Paul Rubin, wrote a blog about it. And then Huffington Post wrote a blog about it. And so it just kind of snowballed from there. But that was just it was 1,000 flyers and a lot of legwork. So don't be afraid to get out there and just say, hey, this is what's happening. In today's world for a specific event, so I didn't care when they went to my website, just if they eventually did. You guys have a specific time and place, you need them to be there. The easier you can get it on their calendar, the better. So that could be a QR code. If you're talking flyers, it could, trying to think, do you have any email list, access to an email list that you could blast?
Yeah, the School of Business.
Okay. So I would try to come up with at least 3 emails that you send out within a matter of like 10 days. And because you need the repetition, the first one, and make the subject line something really fun, like, let me think about this.
Are you hungry?
Oh, I'm very hungry. Oh yeah, are you hungry? Yeah, that's actually,
That's it, just say,
that's not bad. That's actually a really good one. I like that. Are you hungry? Question mark.
Yeah.
And that's all it says.
College students, are you hungry? Yes.
It's like, oh, what? Yeah.
Well, and if you're wanting the college students to show up, do you guys have dorms?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would just, again, with the printing, just under people's doors. And that can even be like the day before, the day of.
I have an idea.
Yes, Alex, I'd like to hear it.
A fake takeout menu featuring the people that are gonna be there.
Ooh.
Like slide under the doors. It's like, check out like all this people.
Oh, that's good.
Or a takeout menu, but with the chefs that are gonna be there.
I
Yeah.
love that.
And then just say something like that.
That's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. This is why I'm a marketing major.
All right, so did that answer or give you some ideas to
Yes,
work
it
with?
certainly did. What about in digital marketing, as far as that goes? Do you have any suggestions with that?
So anybody that you have that has clout, as they call it these days, like with a following that's engaged, if you have access to them posting about it, that's great. Social media, like let's say social media marketing, is often misinterpreted by businesses, especially small businesses. Everyone thinks they have to do it and that it could potentially be like the magic bullet for their business success. To drive sales through social media, it is incredibly difficult and takes a lot of work and is oftentimes not the right channel. So let's say an apparel store that does all of their business brick and mortar and nothing online, and they have a tiny social media following. If they're not going to like hyper focus on that and spend 8 months trying to build a following, doing giveaways, things like that, and they're just talking about paying someone $500 a month to post something every week, that's a complete waste of money. Because you always need to know, what are those call to actions? What are your end goals? Driving more revenue. So you need to know how you're going to acquire those viewers, like the people. So like, are you doing giveaways? Is it just really fancy, engaging content? Are you doing a follow, unfollow strategy, which is if anyone's trying to get more followers on their own social media, going around and following people and then unfollowing them later is a great way. Because oftentimes it's like 1 out of 10 people that you follow, they're like, oh, I'll follow you back. And then yours winds up being much bigger. Same thing with like going to relevant hashtags and following and unfollowing or liking. That's a good way to get your likes up. But I'm rambling about digital marketing. Is there a specific thing like?
Well, we put it on Eventbrite.
Okay.
Dr. Wright did. We have a Instagram page out there.
Yep.
And then we have our own personal pages that we're putting out there. We came up with a logo for it. I have a mass comm major working on a QR code currently, and we're gonna try and, I personally am a people's person, so I love the idea of flyering,
Yep.
taking it to the dorms. So I'll be doing that. As far as other marketing, we shall see.
So with your own, what you just mentioned there, own personal pages. I'd come up with a couple things explaining the event. So your photos, Ben, whatever. Share that amongst everybody that's going to be trying to get people there. And you can do fun things like when you're working with your own personal network, you could say something like, hey friends, this is an event I'm helping put on, and I need 5 people, like I'm supposed to bring at least 5 people. Who's my closest friends? Like, or who will go with me? Who's my closest friends? Let's find out, and then see if your friends are like, yeah, I'm your friend. I'll show up.
Or you can just do a bargaining, like say, it's like this one day, something Dr. Wright did it at 5K. Like she bought like 10 people popsicles.
Yeah.
Just do something like that. Like say, hey, look, the first 5 people that talk to me, I'll buy like their sample pass.
Yeah, that's a great, exactly. Especially if it's $3, that's $15 a person. And then the Eventbrite thing, make sure that that is in all of the emails, and the call to action is to go get your ticket on Eventbrite. So you want that singular message of, this is Eventbrite's where you register, Eventbrite's, because that'll then go on their calendar, and I'm sorry, other digital or other marketing efforts.
I don't know, I feel like from experience, like with college students, like they tend to forget things a lot.
Yeah.
Obviously. So like you could be like.
It's all that
marketing
weed.
Yeah.
I can't say that.
all
We're a Christian university.
But like they tend to forget, obviously. So it's be like, I feel like, because I'm a resident assistant, so like we tend to go hard, like the day of like an event, like
Mhm.
that's like when you get like the most like people.
Marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, that "Are you hungry?" It'd be really funny to just like walk down, knock on doors. Hey, are you hungry?
Literally.
Like, just come outside.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I also have a personal question. What's the most unique pinata order you have ever received? If you could remember.
Are you saying like what the message was?
Yeah.
So I stopped reading these years ago because now, the ones I deal with are the corporate side, so that's just all boring stuff. And then my third-party fulfillment center does all the consumer side. But when I was, the one that had to be brought up to my attention that is a funny story about that. Back in the day, we used to print the messages off and actually stick them in the piñatas, as opposed to being a sticker on the outside little shipping box that they kind of like stick out of. And so when we were still putting them in them, I got a customer support email that said, hey, we received a piñata from y'all and we loved it, but I think we may have gotten the wrong message. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Do you mind telling me what the message said and what your name is so I can look it up in our system? And So she sent me, I asked her name. So she sent me back her name, and I went and I looked at the message that was supposed to go to her, and it was, "Congrats on the baby boy. We can't wait to see him in like the 2 months when we come down and visit." And and I was like, so I sent back, "This is the message that you had." And I said, out of curiosity, what did the message you actually got? She sent back, and it was this was the order right above her, so my fulfillment center just flipped it. But the message was, "Just because I'm sending you a piñata, don't think I don't still hate you." And so, in celebration of their baby boy, they got, "Just because I sent you a piñata."
That sounds like something I was sent like between friends as a joke.
Oh, exactly. That's almost definitely what it was. But just the situation could have been more like, oh man.
The opposite,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So needless to say, we stopped putting them inside the piñatas to where there's this whole like easy mistake thing.
Congrats, you're having a baby. I sold you.
Congrats on the baby boy. It's so big.
And then I did notice that right now you have a zombie piñatagram. Do you have like different seasons? You take out different merchandise. How does that work?
So the zombies are actually repurposing a corporate order that went south. So there's a company called Zendesk, which is a hiring platform, and they commissioned me to do 300 green piñatas. And I went ahead and overproduced because they thought that they would be sending a lot more. One thing led to another. They didn't send any. They still paid me for all the ones that they told me they were going to send. But I had these excess piñatas. I sent them to their headquarters, the ones they paid for, but I'm like, I got a bunch of green piñatas. So that's me trying to get rid of those. I did recently actually order Fortnite piñatas, unicorns, and and reindeer for Christmas. So those will be rolling out soon. I also consult with a couple other startups, and I'm just all over the place. So it's just me not having enough time in the day to buckle down and get them live.
That's nice though. I'll be looking out for those reindeer.
Absolutely.
And the unicorns. I have a 7-year-old niece. She would love that. And then I did look up that you have 2 different websites, one for B2B and one for B2C.
Mm-hmm.
On the B2B, that says there is a 15-minute demo call. What does that consist of?
So I had one this morning. It's pretty much me trying to flip the script on them and saying, "Hey, how'd you hear about us? You know, what product brought you in and you're interested? Tell me what you're expecting or what you would like to accomplish by working with us." So I kind of already assumed the sale and flip it on them to be pitching me why they need to use my service.
Right.
And then we just walk through how it works out. So the demo call, the reason why I use that verbiage is most of my clients are software as a service companies. So I don't know if you've ever heard of SaaS companies. That's the acronym for it. And their sales process, so when you're selling a software as a service, you've got some web platform, and to sell that, you get them on a demo call and you do a walkthrough of the platform. And so since I'm selling to the salespeople that do that, if you're following, I'm using the same words. So they're used to seeing this whole book a demo call, book a demo. I don't actually have a demo for them. I pretty much just get on the phone, tell them a little bit more about what we do, and then the deliverables that I send them, if they're interested, I send them a spreadsheet to put the recipients in. We detail out when they need it done, if there's any customization, like branded stickers or anything like that, and then move forward from there. I'm flying to Boston on Thursday to meet up with a founder of another company called Ignite Post. They do robotic handwritten notes. So they've got all these robots that use real ink pens and mimic handwriting. We're looking at merging our businesses and raising a decent seed round and then really trying to expand our market share. So where was I going with that? Oh, demo. He's got a web platform.
Yes.
That's right. And I've always wanted to migrate my products into a more self-serve situation where it's less like emailing back and forth, like, okay, 250, here's the spreadsheet, blah, blah, blah. And so the end goal, if we did merge, would be able to have companies be able to come online and say, I want 200 piñatas, like click, click, click. Here's my artwork if there's a custom sticker, and then this is the date I want them shipped, submit, they pay the invoice, and like all of that happens with them just going online and doing it. So that's the end goal of if we wind up merging the businesses.
That's cool. I think that is pretty neat. You might even incorporate like people's signatures or their handwriting messages instead of just email. I'm assuming they're just typed messages.
Yeah, the messages are just, so it's just, yeah, plain text on a sticker.
How did you choose the font? Just curious.
Really good question. It was the first one that popped up on the sticker. So my corporate clients, though, often either have handwritten notes that they've done and then just have me include with the piñatas, or they send me, I can send them a Adobe Illustrator template, and they can put full color, whatever they want, and it skins the piñata. I think, let me see if I have any examples of that. Because that's really when people are like, well, it's not on brand. I was like, you can make it on brand. You can. Let's see here. Well, that's kind of, this is one of my own and a bad example, but if you zoom in, you can see that like, that's on a nice vinyl sticker, and it can go all over the box. So. Anybody else have a business idea that so we got event marketing. Is there an e-commerce company which you're gonna try, fail at, and then retry again once you've learned in the next month?
I promise.
And I'll give you guys my business card or contact information, and I would love if you guys have ongoing questions, just ping me. I had to become the person that I wish I knew coming out of college through a lot of failure, and if I can help people avoid some, I encourage it, but I also like to help people avoid it.
That's great.
Well, thank you for coming. Does anyone else have a question?
No. Well, on behalf of the Entrepreneurship Club, we would like to give this to you for coming to visit to us.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.